I don't like Etsy, and this is why. Hello, everyone. My name is Jessica Metcalfe. I am Turtle Mountain Chippewa from North Dakota, and I am the owner of Beyond Buckskin, which is a website dedicated to promoting and discussing Native American-made art and fashion. So please take a moment to subscribe to Beyond Buckskin, and please subscribe to Indigenous House. We have so much more that we want to share with you. So thank you. Now, this particular episode takes a closer look at Etsy. If you're not familiar with Etsy, Etsy is an online global marketplace, and it focuses on the sale of handmade products, but also vintage items and craft supplies. The intention of Etsy is to be a platform where independent artists and crafters and designers can easily open these virtual storefronts in order to reach a wide audience of buyers who are looking specifically for items that are unique, they're creative, or personalized. And to reinforce that core mission, Etsy emphasizes human connection by allowing buyers to purchase directly from individual creators and individual collectors. This all sounds really great and really cool. Just a little bit more history about Etsy. It was founded in 2005, but it really took off and exploded in popularity in 2008 and 2009. And by 2010, I was highlighting Native American Etsy shops on my website, which is beyondbuckskin.com. And I was creating these really fun gift guides that were inspired by a concept or by a material. And this whole thing that I was doing in 2010 and 11 was an outlet for me because I was in the thick of teaching in the art department at Arizona State University in Tempe. So the art department at ASU is huge, and I was surrounded by artists of all backgrounds, different media that they were working in, all different ages. It was just really an extraordinary experience. But I realized that Native art, the field in general, if we're talking about Indigenous artists or Indigenous arts, tribal arts, that field in general wasn't getting the same amount of attention and respect in academia, nor in educational institutions as other areas were, such as the Renaissance period or Baroque art. Nor was it getting attention on the business side of art. For example, what about pricing? How do you price your art? How do you cultivate a supportive clientele? All of that was missing. And so I was super excited about Etsy and about its potential for Native American artists and designers to reach a broader international audience. And that was an exhilarating thought. So back in 2010, so this is over 15 years ago, right? The accessibility that we see now with Native fashion was not commonplace back then. And I look back at this journey that I went through from promoting Etsy, being excited about Etsy in the fall of 2011, and then quickly realizing how terrible the Native-inspired small businesses are on Etsy. Just search Native American on Etsy, and you will find thousands and thousands of product results. Now, unless these items are made by Native American people, it is illegal to label or name your products as Native American. This is a violation of the Indian Arts and Crafts Act. So why is this important? It's important because every day every single day. Non-native online shop owners upload and falsely label their products as Native American, and they do it in order to get more sales. That's the reason for it. This is a marketplace. You wouldn't be putting it up there unless you were trying to make money. So these unethical businesses line their own pockets while taking away valuable opportunities from actual Native American artists and small businesses. I have informed various Etsy shop owners about this law. However, they just changed the phrase from Native American to Native inspired. Now, in this way, they are within the limits of the Indian Arts and Crafts Act, and they still get to have their items listed when somebody searches for Native American products. They can continue to sell their work and profit without being completely upfront and honest about it. This is not a recent phenomenon. This is 100 years of this. Since the 1930s, we have known the positive potential of the arts, especially as a form of economic development in Indian country. We know that a third of all Native people are either practicing or potential artists. And this is a huge resource that we possess within our own people. However, we are currently being drowned out by big non-Native companies as well as non-Native individual handcraft artists who are all misusing these terms, these labels, these words to further themselves at the expense of Native artists. Any brand with a Navajo collection that has nothing to do with Native people, you get the idea. So the idea of something with a lot of potential versus the brutal reality of the Indigenous art world were colliding for me at that time. In 2008 and 2009, we were in the middle of the Great Recession, and people were looking for ways to supplement their income. So many people were trying to find creative solutions to this economic crisis that we were in. And there was this push for supporting small businesses, supporting local as much as possible. And that's where Etsy fit in beautifully. So by the time that 2011 rolled around, that holiday season, I had already seen the potential of Etsy and wanted to share that with as many people as possible. I called it the Holiday Shopping Guide, Support Native Artists and Small Businesses on Etsy. Okay. Everybody is saying that we should support local artists and small businesses this holiday season. And sometimes it's like, yeah, that's a great idea. But just how? How do we do that? Well, I'm going to make it easy for you, ! Over the next couple of weeks, I'll be highlighting some of my favorite items and shops on Etsy. If you don't know about Etsy, they are in sum the world's handmade marketplace. Their mission is to empower people to change the way the global economy works. They offer a unique sales platform for artists and small businesses. Perfect, right? And even better, there are lots of Native artists on Etsy. Rock out! So click here to access my public profile where you can see my faves. And then I start looking at different folks who were making beautiful earrings and bracelets, necklaces. It was just really cool to see what was all out there. And then I ended it with, hopefully I can spotlight a variety of artists from different regions who do cool things. I purposefully selected examples that are under $100 because I'm on the poorer side of things. But if you check out the sites, you'll notice that there are higher end options that these artists offer as well. And finally, let me know if you have a favorite Etsy shop that should be highlighted on here. Support, period. 3 days later, on November 30th of 2011. Then I discovered that Etsy lets you create these lists. They call them treasury lists. So I put together 2 treasury lists and found out that it was a lot of fun to look through everyone's work and pick out some of the, cool pieces that fit into whatever my obsession was at that time. Reading what I wrote, I could see the optimism and the energy that I felt. One of these posts was another holiday gift guide. And I literally say, continuing the Etsy-a-thon. I called it an Etsy-a-thon, what I was writing. Here are some more ideas. Okay, before I get into it, I have a confession. I always wanted to be the Indian version of Martha Stewart. Write about cool tricks of the trade for beadworking, bring in special guests to talk about making fry bread for weddings, and do a feature on cool decorating ideas with birch bark. By December 11th, I'm saying, I'm in Tempe right now, and there are no snowflakes in sight. I'm from North Dakota, so it's kind of like important. So I decided to create a treasury list of items that combine the colors of white, silver, and black, and give me that cool snowflake feel. And I say, I have been blogging about Etsy to draw greater awareness to Native American and First Nations artists and small businesses. So right there is where the idea to create the Buy Native list was born. Right there. Now, to continue this idea beyond just the holidays, I'm going to be doing designer profiles on Native Etsy artists in the coming months. So this is where I realized that we shouldn't just support Native artists during the holidays, but it should go beyond the holidays. It was so much fun to highlight Native American and First Nations artists and small businesses because there's this ultimate goal of getting people to buy directly from Native artists and to do it regularly. And at that time, all I had was this one platform, which was Beyond Buckskin, the blog. I loved focusing the blog on talented individuals, their creativity, their overall awesomeness as people. But a lot of times I would be compelled to also write about issues of appropriation, issues of misuse, and issues of misrepresentation. I'd rather focus all my time and energy on Native-made fashion, Native-made art, but in our crazy world, unacceptable things occur, and I have to write about completely ridiculous things. So one example that I couldn't move past and I had to write about it was this guy who called himself Gray Owl. He was selling items that looked an awful lot like the artwork of Métis artist Christy Belcourt. And by an awful lot, I mean exact replica. So you can argue that what he was selling was kind of cool. And the answer is yes, it was super cool because an artist made that design. She painted that design. But Gray Owl wasn't giving any of the money or any of the recognition or any acknowledgement to the artist. He never even asked Belcourt for the use of her art. Gray Owl says that, well, he is a Native artist. He said that he's of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe Leech Lake Band, and he gave us his Indian ID number. Like, this was intense. So he's not in violation of the Indian Arts and Crafts Act. Okay, Gray Owl, do you think that because you're Native, that it makes it less bad that you just stole from Christy Belcourt? So this is a problem on multiple levels. Number one, you are stealing from a noted artist. That's just straight illegal. You cannot do that, period. On a second level, why do non-artists consistently try to cheat artists? Not just Native or Indigenous artists. We see this across the board with businesses and corporations that are constantly taking from artists and creators. Creativity is necessary for the continuance of our communities, especially with Indigenous communities. And we should be supporting those individuals, not ripping them off. And then on a third level, why do people think over and over again that Native artists are nameless? That whatever they produce, whatever a Native artist produces, is free for the taking, that it's free to replicate and sell as your own. And the answer, spoiler alert, is because of colonization, because of our history. But I'll allow you guys to sit on that for a little bit before I talk about that in more depth. The work of Native artists produced either now or in the past or in the future, it's not free for the taking. I was not doing this alone. There was Chelsea Vowell, who was also writing. She had her own blog. Adrienne Keene had her blog, Native Appropriations. I had Beyond Buckskin blog. There were so many of us. And so Chelsea wrote about it December 8th. Then I wrote about it December 9th. And by December 10th, the items in question were removed from the website. So we talked to Christy Belcourt, and she had to put out a statement about it because there were so many people reporting this and asking her what was going on. And she said that it was very difficult for her to get her artwork removed from this website, these knockoffs. She said, quote, "I had to jump through hoops back and forth with them to prove the artwork was mine. When that was done, they sent me an email confirming that they had removed the items I had listed and also notified him, Gray Owl, by email." So she was ultimately able to get her artwork removed. But again, it took persistence. And it wasn't just Christy Belcourt. There was another random account using Jean Quick-to-See Smith's artwork. These are major Native American artists that randos are putting out there and selling as theirs. And these were, Jean has passed on, but she was alive then. These are living Native American artists that are being ripped off. There was a group of us having these conversations online about why it's wrong to rip off Native artists. And we were doing it in these bitchy ways. We were really bitchy about it. I'm sorry, but we were, because it's bullshit. Chelsea titled her article, "Ripping Off Native Artists. It's the New Black." I called mine the brutal reality, but we saw results, and we saw results quickly. I'm talking a couple days, where either Chelsea Vowell or I would, or Adrienne Keene would, and it was a matter of days, sometimes even hours, that we would get a response from major companies. And it was okay, let's use this power for good. So I do need to state that Gray Owl was on Zazzle, not on Etsy. That is important because, I still, was hopeful about the power of Etsy. And I could understand with Zazzle being a large company that, yes, it's probably easier for people to abuse. So that's important to know, that Gray Owl was on Zazzle. We were able to get those items removed. I went back to Etsy, and it just got harder to weed through the ruckus. Etsy is a breeding ground for Native American stereotypes, tackiness, and tastelessness. Yes, I am being crude, rude, and blunt, but it needs to be said. The deal on Etsy is that it is the world's most vibrant handmade marketplace. In other words, people make stuff, they find vintage stuff, and then sell it on Etsy. In theory, it's a great way to launch small businesses. Think about it. You can operate a small business out of your home in rural Tinyville and reach millions of people throughout the world with just a few clicks. In theory, it is a fantastic resource for Native artists and crafters. And in theory, Etsy can serve as a great resource for Native American artists and designers. So I hit up Etsy with full force, but within 2 months, I realized that it was becoming more difficult to back Etsy. So if you go on Etsy and search Native American, good luck finding items that are actually Native made. Instead, you will find items made by non-natives, but inspired by Native culture. And you probably know where this is going. So there was the wolf tea. You got to have the wolf. No shortage of wooden Indian heads. Even the shaman smudging spray, which didn't even shock me at this time because there were a lot of shamans on Etsy. If you were a shaman, you were on Etsy in 2011, hanging out, spending all of your shaman time. There was a shaman named Many Feathers who would bless your purchases. Many Feathers said, as a shaman, Many Feathers is able to bless your purchases in the tradition of his people before they are sent to you, which is especially powerful if they are meant to be a gift for someone you love. Thank you, Many Feathers. But how much is that going to cost again? There was another guy who went by the name Troll Blood. Granted, my name is Jessica Metcalfe, and I was Beyond Buckskin, so you can make fun of me too. So Troll Blood was selling items labeled Native American, yet explicitly stated, we take pride in creating beautiful, one-of-a-kind items with the new age community in mind. That was very thoughtful of them. And as I brought up before, many stores label their items as Native American, and you can label something, you can use it in the description in order to show up on the search results. But it isn't until you read their profiles that you discover something along this line. I am not an enrolled citizen of any federally recognized Native American tribe. Any resemblance to an authentic Native American piece of artwork is not intentional and is by mistake. So this was a statement by Dove's Native Designs, who also created a bone choker here that you can see. So in compliance with the Indian Arts and Crafts Act, again, you cannot sell any art or craft product in a manner that falsely suggests that it is Indian produced and Indian And when we're using the word Indian, it's, in this context, it's interspersed with the word, Indigenous, Native American, American Indian, First Nations. So anything that falsely suggests it is Indian produced, an Indian product, or the product of a particular Indian or Indian tribe, it's illegal. Again, there were other individuals on Etsy who were Native and were trying to get their pieces to be spotlighted, right, by Etsy to get that platform. And so there was one, and her name was Noelle, and she worked so hard at elevating Native artists on Etsy. And she, stated over and over again, it is offensive and illegal, and it undermines authentic Native American art markets exponentially. It is blatant cultural theft for profit. I really wanted to do something, this is at the prime time of armchair activism. So I drafted up a short letter. I love writing a letter to send to anyone using the label Native American to sell their stuff to people that it's clear that they're using the label as a marketing tactic. So I came up with this letter, dear Etsy shop owner, I am writing to let you know of a federal law that prohibits the misrepresentation in marketing of Native American arts and crafts produced within the United States. It's called the Indian Arts and Crafts Act. More information can be found here. It is illegal to offer or display for sale or sell any art or craft product in a manner that falsely suggests it is Native American produced, Native American product, or the product of a particular Native American tribe. For a first-time violation of the act, an individual can face civil or criminal penalties up to $250,000 in a fine or a 5-year prison term or both. Please remove the label Native American from your items or I will go forth with reporting a violation. Sincerely, Dr. Jessica R. Metcalfe, Turlock, Chippewa. And then on the blog, I asked people, what is your feedback on this? Is this appropriate? Is it too mean? I just asked, the individuals out there, what do they think? The feedback was very good. It was so good. We weren't trying to be mean to people, but at that time I said Etsy needs to be cleaned up. The Native American inspired rubbish blowing around is getting out of hand. Let's support actual Indigenous artists. It was just, such a simple concept, but this is where shit got really not good. And I, again, was being kind of cheeky. And I said, I sift through the crap so you don't have to. Meaning that I literally sift through all of this stuff on Etsy to see if it's made by somebody who actually has an affiliation with any Native American tribe. I didn't care about descendants. I wasn't looking at that. I was looking specifically at the people who clearly were using the term to make money. Then you kind of have to start thinking about what are my core values and what's the conflict here? And the main thing was cultural theft for profit. I couldn't see it any other way. And, thankfully, I wasn't alone. So Adrienne Keene had built up this wonderful resource called the Native Appropriations blog. It was so nice to be able to just send people to her blog. She had it all listed out, different resources, kind of like a 101 on appropriation, and then more in-depth looks and in-depth studies. So no matter where you were on your journey to understanding and appreciating Indigenous cultures, you could find something on her platform, on her website. And so I thought that I could start doing that on Beyond Buckskin, creating these, action items, things to do, showing some actual numbers, listing things out, because we were getting to a point where we were repeating ourselves. This is coming right in the whole mess of the Urban Outfitters misuse of the Navajo Nation's trademark of their own name. We'll talk about that more in another episode. But we've talked about this stuff so much. So it's so nice to just have it written down. Here's the resource. Boom. If you don't know about appropriation and start hopping in saying, oh, it's appreciation, just go here. It's a really short, boop, boop, boop. It's not that complicated. The follow-up to that first, where I tore apart Etsy, I finally just went in for it and tore it up and said, Etsy is a breeding ground for Native American stereotypes, tackiness, and tastelessness. I made these bold, point blank, blunt statements. The first is that if you go on to Etsy and search Native American in the search bar, it is difficult to find items that are actually made by Native Americans. The second point that I made was that non-natives continue to use the label of Native American as a marketing tactic to sell their work and make money. Sometimes it is even in violation of the Indian Arts and Crafts Act. Again, just blatant cultural theft for profit. Then the third point that I made was that Non-natives and some natives continue to think that it is okay to sell Native American spirituality, and that there were a high number of shamans and shaman items being sold on Etsy. That first critique of Etsy was my first attempt at understanding the mess on Etsy. It was by no means a conclusive study in any regard. I specifically selected examples based on my initial search results. These were the ones that popped up first. 5 days later, since I made the claim that Etsy was a breeding ground for Native stereotypes, tackiness, and tastelessness, I was asked to apologize and or retract my statements that I made about one of the stores that I randomly singled out. So evidently, the shop owner is a real nice lady. In addition, I was told that she is an elder in her clan. Now, on an emotional level, I immediately felt terrible for what I said and for, devastating a nice person and a clan elder. She couldn't even approach me herself, but 2 of her friends, jumped to her defense. So I was like, oh shit, did I make a mistake? Because sometimes it happens, right? So I looked into it and I found out some interesting facts. This particular individual, first of all, she's not Native American. She was adopted by a group called the Broken Arrow Clan, and she now serves as council elder. I'm smiling because it's so ridiculous. So at this time, we called them rainbow tribes. It's a group of people who have no connection to Native communities at all, yet pretend to be Native American. They make up a name for their tribe and they act out and perpetuate stereotypes of Native people. This particular woman used this affiliation, this fake identity, to position herself as a person of authority. And her friends used it as well, and this, faux elder status, as a mechanism to try to silence me. The other thing that I found out about her is she tells Native American oral tradition stories like they're hers to tell. She recently told an Ojibwe story, and I'm Turtle on Chippewa. And so she was doing these online story hours. Again, it's a way to position herself as somebody of importance, of knowledge. And then the third thing that I found out about her was that she sells items with the label Native to make money for herself. And she states that she will ceremonial cleanse your purchase before shipping them. I get that, that was so the thing to do. I mean, if it wasn't ceremonially cleansed, is it actually Native? I don't know. The fourth thing that I discovered about this particular woman was that in the description of one of her pieces, she writes, quote, I asked one of the elders from my clan why our people of the First Nation wore chokers. And then she took the information from a website. Just to reiterate, her clan is the Broken Arrow clan, which is not connected to any First Nation. Last thing is that she has, it's so ridiculous. The last thing is that she has a picture of herself on Etsy wearing buckskin regalia. And she actually calls it buckskin regalia that she made for herself a couple years ago. Now, this woman is a classic Indian hobbyist. She plays Indian. She thinks she has the right to profit off of Native cultures. And she thinks she has the right to represent us, misrepresent in our cultures. And her feelings got hurt when I called her out on it. So no, I said, no, I'm not going to apologize and I will not retract my statements. In fact, I think she owes us a couple of apologies for her actions and her attempted hijacking of our cultures. And if you're confused as to why I was so bothered, again, you could go over to the Native Appropriations blog where these topics are covered over and over again extensively. Everything from, am I, appropriating or am I appreciating, right? That's a basic question everybody freaking asks. And how people don't know this by now drives me batshit crazy. Which leads us to the dark side of Etsy. Yeah. It's not good. 2011 is when I discovered the power of Etsy. And I scoured Etsy. And I keep touching these earrings because I got these from Etsy. They're beautiful. I love them. And so this is like almost 15 years ago that I bought these, and they're still gorgeous. They're still in like amazing condition. The quality is phenomenal. And the purchase from these went directly to an artist, and she mailed these directly to me. And I think that there's just so much power in that relationship that needs to be protected and encouraged. But in order to do that, I had to dig through a bunch of crap. So I wrote in real time. There were blog posts back in the day. It's fascinating for me as a nerd, as a academic, a scholar, to look back at what happened and seeing how it's still going on, but in different ways and in different spaces, and that we still have a lot of work to do.